Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB. And tonight, Monday night, 6 o'clock Central Time, here we have a game tonight, Monday Night Football. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Not much excitement for that game tonight, but we do have a pretty interesting show tonight. We're going to be kind of doing a sneak peek at the waiver wire report, but we also have a ton of injuries and just things to kind of review from the Week 15 action. So this is basically a Week 15 review type video. I'll answer questions in the chat room, whatever you guys need. But for the most part here, I'm just looking at the huge list of injuries that happened yesterday and from the past here. So we do have quite a bit. I did put the link in the description below for the waiver wire report if you want to check that out. And then we'll also pull up the opportunity report, which is also in the description below. But man, I guess just starting with the quarterback injuries, nothing too crazy here, but Derek Carr, we all saw him on Thursday night pull up with the groin injury. He's going to be questionable for Week 16. I don't think people were using Derek Carr outside of Superflex leagues, but he's not really a QB1 streamer for the most part there. So we might be taking a look at Marcus Mariota for Superflex leagues this week. Again, the Raiders will be playing the Dolphins, I believe, on Saturday afternoon. I can't remember what time it is, but something like that. And then Daniel Jones didn't play last night. He's probably leaning towards probable, better on the questionable tag there. And he's dealing with ankle and hamstring injuries. We'll see if he can get in the game next week. But again, we're not really using Daniel Jones, Alex Smith, Nick Mullins. These guys are all more like quarterback twos in Superflex leagues. So we don't really need to pay too much attention to them. But again, Daniel Jones, questionable. Alex Smith with the calf injury. Actually, Dwayne Haskins gave everyone on the Redskins or the Washington football team value that we needed. So Terry McLaurin had a good game. Logan Thomas had a monster game, as well as J.D. McKissick. So everybody, basically was able to put up fantasy numbers with Dwayne Haskins. So we'll see if Alex Smith comes back. But with Dwayne Haskins, I'm not too nervous about my Washington football fantasy players there. And then Nick Mullins, he actually left the game at the end against Dallas with an elbow injury. They did give C.J. Beathard the last drive or two maybe. So Nick Mullins is going to be definitely questionable throughout the week. So I'll watch his reports. But the bulk of this list is going to be looking at these wide receivers and these running backs, starting with Christian McCaffrey. If you've made it this far and you're in the championship with Christian McCaffrey, well done. I'd like to see some screenshots of your team, because that is an incredible job well done. So if you were riding Mike Davis or James Robinson or something, I'd be curious to see how your roster was constructed to be without the best fantasy football player in 2020 this year. So Christian McCaffrey, we'll see what he can do in practice this week. It's 50-50 if he's going to play. They are going to be playing against the Washington football team, so it is a tough matchup. So we'll see his practice reports throughout the week here. Ezekiel Elliott didn't play yesterday with the calf injury, and he's probably going to be 50-50 for this one as well. And Tony Pollard looked great in relief of Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm not really sure the Dallas Cowboys are going to be rushing to make sure Ezekiel Elliott gets on the field. They are still within distance of winning the NFC East. So I'm assuming they're going to try to make sure Elliott's ready to go on this one. But again, we'll have to watch his practice reports. Antonio Gibson, questionable with the toe injury. I think it might be maybe one more week before we see him. But if you can get Antonio Gibson back in our fantasy lineups for the championship, that would be really nice to see. Josh Jacobs, he did have like a minor knee thing going on, just a tiny minor knee thing going on Thursday Night Football. So he's going to be probable for this week. He'll probably be limited throughout most of the week here. But Josh Jacobs, good matchup against Miami. We'll see who the quarterback is, but the Raiders pretty dinged up on offense. So we'll watch those reports. Cam Akers, questionable with the ankle. He did hurt himself with the ankle midway through the game, but he was able to come back. So that's probably just going to be a limited practice participation throughout the week. And what's going on, Turner? Yeah, we got our fantasy basketball league tonight. I'm excited to see, because at 6:30, that's when the lobby opens and we can see the draft order. It's going to be a random draft order, but it's the random 1 hour before the draft begins type thing. So yeah, very excited for the draft. And I don't know, I had another fantasy draft last night. I was pick 2. I wouldn't mind getting pick 1 to get Giannis living in Milwaukee. I think that'd be kind of fun. But I don't know, just excited to see where we land. And oh man, 10 in a row in the quarterfinals. That's a bummer. The nice win streak, though. A double-digit win streak in fantasy football is hard to come by. So, but yeah, never a fun way to end the season here. So what's going on, Sport Dog? Antone on my roster, so wouldn't have enough. Antone. So third place. All right, we're gonna help you get it. Who's I could have used Antone. Is that Antonio Gibson? I'm assuming. Yeah. Gibson, and I don't know if you were able to get McKissick or anything in there, but the Washington football team actually looked Uh, Not the greatest, but functional for fantasy enough with Dwayne Haskins. So we'll see if Gibson can go this week. I'm definitely watching his report. But yeah, just a ton of running backs here got dinged up over the week. We know Ronald Jones had the pinky surgery and also on the COVID list, and he's got a really fun matchup against Detroit this coming week. So we'll see if Ronald Jones can come back and help us in our lineups for the championship. Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert both going to be questionable throughout the week. Both guys got hurt at midpoint through the game, and they both came back. So they're probably going to be pretty limited in practice. We're not going to see too much reports from them, I think, until Friday. Also, James Robinson had a pretty nasty ankle sprain. He's doubtful for week 15, or for week 16. So if you guys have been relying on James Robinson, we might have to look elsewhere. Hopefully you picked up Tony Pollard or maybe somebody else off the waiver wire last week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I doubt we see him at any point the next 2 weeks. I don't know if he played a week 17, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a hip and he also has an ankle injury. And it sounds like the ankle one's a little bit more serious, so I should probably add that here in the description. But we're going to be without Clyde Edwards-Helaire the next 2 games, but most importantly, at least this weekend. And that's going to make us interested in Le'Veon Bell and maybe Darrell Williams. We'll probably look at that a little bit more later tomorrow. Again, Raheem Mostert here. Myles Gaskin's going to come back, but he's also probably going to be sharing snaps with Salvin Ahmed now, who had a pretty good game, over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Patriots. Jamal Williams, questionable with a thigh injury. This doesn't seem too serious. I think the reports I read from Green Bay seemed optimistic that this isn't going to hold him out for very long. But this is actually a good news if you are an Aaron Jones owner. We should be able to see a pretty high workload for Aaron Jones against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday Night Football. You got Duke Johnson, questionable with a neck injury. I'm not sure we're going to see him. This seems kind of serious. And they got David Johnson. So if you have David Johnson, you really did like that. And then Damian Harris here, questionable with the ankle injury. Sony Michel was kind of the bell cow for them this week. So Keenan Allen. The Keenan Allen thing was pretty frustrating for the most part. You know, he even pointed at a sideline reporter and said, "Don't sit this tonight." So whatever happened with his hamstring injury kind of flared up and he just had limited snaps. Mostert, man, the thing that sucked about Mostert is he was looking really good. And it felt like anytime he took the ball, he could potentially take one to the house. So Mostert, not a great fantasy day, but he hopefully can help us in the future here. I don't know what the ankle injury is going to be. And then the 49ers defense against the Cowboys, it should have been a good play. I think it had a green 31 mark next to it too. And then Goddard and Robinson just had floor games. It was kind of unfortunate there. Misspelled. I meant it would have been a difference who I started. Okay. So in Septivus number 1, start Russ or Hurts. I think I got to go with Hurts. Russell Wilson, the offense has just been kind of in a funk the last month, ever since all their running backs got healthy. And then now that we know, I mean, they're playing the LA Rams. The last time they played the Rams, it wasn't a high-scoring affair. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, those guys kind of make me nervous. Whereas Jalen Hurts against the Cowboys, I think that's going to be a matchup that we're going to probably lean into pretty heavily. He's probably going to be a consensus top 5 pick or a consensus top 5 ranking amongst quarterbacks this weekend. So I think just against the 49ers were able to throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns against the Cowboys yesterday. So Jalen Hurts with those legs and what he can do with those receivers right now, I think we're going to probably be saying start Jalen Hurts pretty much for every question this week. So I kind of want to just look at the receivers real quick. There's a handful of top end ones dinged up. I don't know if Julio Jones is going to play. We'll monitor his hamstring. We know Michael Thomas ain't coming back for fantasy this year. He might even have to wait one game in the playoffs here. So the Saints might have to win a game in the playoffs without Michael Thomas. That's going to be super interesting to watch. Stephon Diggs, probable with a foot injury. He actually had some pretty optimistic reports today. I don't think it's going to be anything too concerning, but we'll watch his injury reports all week. Keenan Allen with the hamstring injury. The Chargers are going to be playing against the Broncos. It's going to be a meaningless game for both teams. I'm not sure if they're going to feel the need to get him in the lineup, but we'll, again, check his reports all week. Jalen Reagor had a pretty bad ankle sprain. He's probably not going to play this weekend, but we'll see what he can do. That's going to affect the Jalen Hurts thing a little bit, but they have so many receivers there that they use that I don't think it's going to cause me too much hesitation with Hurts. Kenny Golladay, we're assuming we're not seeing him again the rest of the year. Deebo Samuel, he's got that really bad hamstring strain here. He's probably not playing this week. And then Devontae Parker, questionable with the leg. He was a kind of a surprise inactive yesterday. I would assume maybe next week they get him back in the lineup and see what he can do against the Raiders. And because it's the Raiders, you're going to want to try to get Devontae Parker in your lineups for sure. So I'm definitely watching these Dolphins. And then I also have Gesicki down here with the shoulder. If I can get my Dolphins back in the lineup, I'm going to probably be all in on the Tua, the Parker, the Gesicki, and we'll see about the running backs there too. It sounds like Michael Gallup had some positive news on his hip injury. He's going to be questionable for week 16, but I don't think people were using Michael Gallup for the most part in terms of fantasy this year. And then Henry Ruggs, he'll be back off the COVID list most likely. I think he needs to be activated by Wednesday in order to make the game, so we'll watch for that. We talked about Gesicki, Kyle Rudolph with the foot. He's going to be questionable for week 16. But if he's out, we're going to continue to like Irv Smith Jr., so that's something to keep an eye on if you do need tight ends. So a lot of injuries to monitor for sure. We'll have hopefully a little bit more information on some of these guys tomorrow. I do have a list here of guys eligible to return from IR, but I really don't know if we're going to be using any of these guys. Pretty sure Mixon's not coming back. Pretty sure Garoppolo. It sounded like Michael Perrine's going to come back for the Jets, but we're not going to start a Jets running back. John Brown, he's probable for week 15. So if there's one player that interests us for the week 16 matchups and you need someone to start off the waiver wire, it might be John Brown. We'll see his reports this weekend, but I'm pretty sure they activated him already. So he's leaning towards probable this week. Edelman, Preston Williams, Paris Campbell, not interested there. George Kittle is the one guy here too that maybe interests me. But because the 49ers lost, they've pretty much been eliminated from the playoffs. Who knows if they're going to rush him back out there? There's nothing to play for besides just getting him back in the groove and making sure he's fully recovered here. So we might get a little pause button on George Kittle. And then we'll see about Greg Olsen here. So not too much of the injury reports here that I like, but for the most part, really got to keep an eye on these running backs and these wide receivers. So if we do have questions on those guys, you guys can fire them away. As far as the injury report, I didn't get too far on it. I did rank all my quarterback one streaming options. You're going to see Jalen Hurts and Ryan Tannehill and Tua be my top three choices. These guys all have pretty good matchups. Tannehill's matchup's a little bit tough going up against Green Bay. I think that might be a pretty big Derrick Henry game. And this one kind of just feels like a backyard brawl between contrasting styles of offense here. So we'll see what Green Bay and the Tennessee Titans can do. A couple other guys here would interest me. Maybe Baker Mayfield with the plum matchup against the Jets. He's been on fire. Trubisky against Jacksonville. And then we'll see about some of these other guys that I have questions on. And then we also have some super flex dudes here. And then I really didn't get too far. I kind of want more information on the running backs tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. But I do have a list of tight ends: Logan Thomas, Tyler Higbee. I think Tyler Higbee is going to interest us because it sounds like Gerald Everett's recovering from a concussion. So we'll see Everett's reports throughout the week. But maybe you get Tyler Higbee in a potential smash spot. If he's the lone tight end there, you're going to like Tyler Higbee. So I like him quite a bit for a waiver wire tight end this week. Schultz, Smith, Kmet, Ebron, Cook, these guys are all kind of in the same tier. If you don't know what you're going to get, they have decent floors, but really it depends on a touchdown from those guys. So we'll see what happens there. And then I did list out some defenses. So if you guys wanted to take a peek at the waiver wire report, that is available, but we'll have more on that tomorrow night. What's going on, Justin? Thanks for hanging out. We started Hurts and last second put in Tony. Awesome. That had to feel pretty good. Man, yesterday was like a roller coaster of emotions. I know that basically that first half, I was not doing well in points. And then we had some boom in the second quarter or the third quarter of the noon games. But yeah, when Hurts came on the field, it took a little bit while. He had a 0, but man, all of a sudden Hurts was just putting up the numbers. 4 touchdowns. And I was kicking myself the last 3 or 4 days because I actually benched Justin Herbert in a Superflex league. And I was going to use Taysom Hill. So the next day, you already feel like crap because you benched Justin Herbert. Then you get the hit with Drew Brees is starting. So then I pivoted to Hurts, which actually turned out to be the better play. So Jalen Hurts, he's going to be a league winner this week. I really feel good about Jalen Hurts against the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen the best spectrum for Jalen Hurts that you could have possibly imagined. As far as him being a starting quarterback in kind of a dysfunctional offense at the moment right now, he brought something to life that Carson Wentz could not. So Jalen Hurts, with his legs and the way he impressed us with his arm yesterday, Jalen Hurts, man, he's going to win us some championships. So Inceptivus is asking, start Andrews, Hawkinson, or Tunyon, full PPR. Man, with the way Hawkinson played yesterday, I don't really like that. It's probably between Mark Andrews and Robert Tonyan. In terms of opportunity, I'm going to like Mark Andrews the most here. So this is the Week 15 opportunity report. I got this done earlier than I normally did. So you see Mark Andrews, they were kind of just playing with the Jags. Mark Andrews, 34 snaps, but 5 of 5 on his target, 66 yards and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, if you currently look at what he's been doing, and the fact that they get the New York Giants next Sunday, that's a pretty good matchup. I think they're going to limit the Giants there pretty easily. But all of a sudden, you see Mark Andrews have four of his best games of the year all in a row here, and 66 yards, a touchdown. And the main thing with Andrews here is back in Week 10 when Nick Boyle got hurt, this is when all the targets and everything kind of opened up for Andrews. So he's had the last 4 games, he's had his 4 highest yardage outputs. He didn't have above 60 the whole season up until Week 10. So Mark Andrews is technically one of the hottest players for tight end, but then so is Robert Tonyan, who's attached to Aaron Rodgers, which does feel pretty good. So I think for now, especially in a full PPR where Tonyan doesn't get the targets here, Tunyan's very efficient with the few targets he gets. But I think for now, I'm going to rank these Andrews, Tonyan, and Hawkinson. And I love my Baltimore pieces of Lamar, Andrews, and J.K. Dobbins right now. I think I'm going to lean into Baltimore here. QB Hurts. RB, is that Eckler and Taylor, wide receiver Julio and AB, tight end Andrews, defense needs streamer for next week, and I got Bass, kicker. All right, I think I'm good with Bass on Monday Night Football against the Patriots. I think that game earlier this year too was more a heavy kind of field goal game here, so I think I'm cool with holding on the kicker for Bass on Monday night. I did have a list of some defenses here. I'm not sure who's going to be available. I kind of wide net it here. So I'm assuming the Ravens are owned, probably the Bears, maybe even the Saints. Maybe someone dropped Tampa Bay up against Detroit. We know Matt Stafford's kind of dinged up here. You could potentially add the Chiefs. I don't know if anyone let go of the Chiefs against Atlanta. Maybe the Miami Dolphins against the Raiders here, especially if it's Mariota. That could be kind of messy. But the team to keep an eye on is going to be Buffalo. Buffalo's defense has been trending pretty well the last couple games, and New England's offense it's basically hit rock bottom at this point. No touchdowns yesterday, only 4 field goals. Cam Newton, not a lot of confidence there. I think if you had to choose one that might be available, maybe it's these Buffalo Bills. Arizona, maybe against San Francisco. All the running backs are kind of dinged up there. But I think the one, if any of these guys are available, I do like these teams a lot, but I'm assuming most of the defenses are owned. So maybe Buffalo Monday night against New England. Just lean into Buffalo. I think that's probably a good play there. And then if you don't like that, maybe Philadelphia against Dallas here. We don't really trust Dallas too much. But I think Buffalo could be a pretty good team. But yeah, I'm not sure who's going to be. Oh, you have Bears D and the Bills D. Excellent. You got to go with the Bears, right? I mean, I have them ranked second here. James Robinson's probably not playing. Maybe that's just one that you don't overthink, and we're just going to start the Bears. Obviously, I like the Bears pretty high here too as my number 2 team. So definitely think I'm going to say Bears here. Inceptivus. Bench 1, Brandon Ayuk, Bob Woods, Deontay Johnson, and Antonio Brown. I ain't benching Ayuk at all. Ayuk stays in the lineup. Probably going to lean into Robert Woods. He's been super consistent all year. So the 2 guys, Deontay Johnson and Antonio Brown, I think because of the matchup for Antonio Brown against Detroit next week is really good. Let's Inceptivus. Let's evaluate this tonight. If Deontay Johnson looks good tonight, he might not be a bad choice to keep in the lineup here. So otherwise, I mean, it's the Bengals. Like all the Steelers, like Claypool, Johnson, Juju, even Ebron, all of these receivers, like they should have a good game here. So I'm really watching Pittsburgh. And basically, Pittsburgh, if you're relying on any Steelers tonight, this is a stress test where if we don't see something from one of these Steelers, you're going to have a hard time trusting them next week against the Colts, right? This is a plum matchup. They should really be playing at their best against the Bengals here. So for now, I'm going to say Ayuk and Woods. Those guys are clear in. But right now, Antonio Brown against the Lions. That sounds kind of fun. But let's evaluate Deontay Johnson tonight. If Deontay Johnson looks good, I'm going to say keep Deontay in the lineup because he's the primary target. Antonio Brown did have a nice day yesterday, but we'll see what happens in the Lions. So the way I see them ranked here, I'm probably going to lean as of this recording. I'm going to say we're going to start Deontay against the Colts, but if he struggles tonight, we'll lean AB there. Yeah, Bears, D, and Bills. It's yeah, no problem. Yeah, I really don't mind. I'm not gonna give away any information as far as what I'm picking. I'm just gonna kind of review the draft as it goes, and then when I'm actually up to pick, that's when I'll kind of make my commentary on my picks. But yeah, we're doing a live fantasy basketball mock draft tonight at 7:30 with a bunch of people here. Turner's in the draft, a couple other the YouTube guys here that hang out, and then a couple of my own friends. So very exciting. I had a good basketball draft last night too. But I don't know, a lot of fun things going on there. So if you guys got more questions, you guys can keep firing them away. I did kind of want to just maybe we'll just quick look at the Roto World reports and see if anything sticks out here. James Conner is inactive, so if you were holding out hope for Conner, that's not ideal. Hopefully you have Benny Snell or McFarland or Jalen Samuels or someone to plug in there. But no James Conner tonight. That's a new update there. We talked about Diggs. He's very optimistic that he's going to be okay. The Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the ankle and the hip. He's probably not playing the next 2 weeks. There was a couple in here that I saw. This one was interesting. Ito Smith. They said Todd Gurley is there's just some really weird quotes about Todd Gurley today. And basically Raheem Morris says Ito Smith is the lead runner right now. Now, Atlanta's going to play Kansas City next week. I'll put Ito Smith on the waiver wire report. Am I trusting Ito Smith to win me a fantasy championship? Probably not. So this is more of if you really need somebody off the waiver wire and you've been using junk at RB2 all season, maybe that's the guy for you. But interesting note here, he's going to be the leading guy. And then just in terms of opportunity here, we'll quick look. Ito Smith, 48% snap share yesterday, 6 attempts, 24 yards, catches 2 of his 3 targets for 9 yards. So what is this, a 5-point-something day here in PPR leagues? Not the greatest in a game that they could have had more points there. So let me just see what's in the chat room. So Justin is a Jets fan, and they won yesterday. I'm very mad. Yeah, that was a very questionable decision there, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think you should be more mad at the Rams for sucking. So just playing down to that opponent there and essentially costing you guys Trevor Lawrence here. But I don't know. There's a lot of info going on with the Jets where who knows, maybe they weren't thinking about Trevor Lawrence. But at this moment right now, Jacksonville, they just need to lose out and they're going to get the number 1 pick. The New York Jets probably have to trade Sam Darnold away next year, otherwise commit to Justin Fields. So interesting offseason ahead here, but yeah, the Jets. The one thing Adam Gase had going for him was he was losing and tanking for Trevor, and then all of a sudden he finds a way to even mess that up. So I get it, very frustrating as a Jets fan, and I can't remember who's the Jaguar fan in the chat, but I was thinking of them when the Jags got the number 1. So Inceptivus is asking us to rate his starting lineup for the championship. Hurts, that's we'll give that an A. Henry, we'll give that an A+ against Green Bay. That's great. J.D. McKissick, assuming this is PPR, I'm going to give that a solid B+. Ayuk, we'll give Ayuk an A-. We'll give Woods an A-, and then the AB or Johnson situation, that's probably more of your B+. But again, we'll see what Deontay does tonight. If Deontay returns back to normal, no drops, no nothing, puts up like 7-8 catches, we're going to like Deontay Johnson next week against the Colts. Mark Andrews, I think that's an A. Younghoe Koo is the A++ kicker of the season so far. And then Ravens D against the Giants. That's the one right there. I think I had that number 1 on my report too, did I not? Baltimore Ravens against the New York Giants. So both New York teams, the Jets and the Giants, are they put up the fewest points per game. So I should probably add the Cleveland Browns to this list because they play the Jets. I'm going to update that and put the Cleveland Browns towards the top here. But the Browns and the Ravens playing against the New York teams, really good opportunity for those defense. But Inceptivus, man, this looks like a championship winning team. And then I get it. We're going to have to make a tough decision on Antonio Brown or Deontay Johnson, but I think I was able to help you enough with that. But if McKissick keeps getting those targets, you almost want Dwayne Haskins in there because he was relying heavily on McKissick. But for the most part, man, this looks like a potential league-winning lineup here, so good stuff. I mean, the Jets got a future superstar on Frank Gore. Yeah, the young Frank Gore. Interesting to see. I don't know if they're going to bring Frank Gore back or who's going to want him, but if anything, with the Jets winning yesterday, I felt happy for Frank Gore that he actually got something out of his stay with the Jets here. So I think the Jags can beat the Bears because of Mitch, or the Colts resting Week 17 versus the Jags. Yeah, and then I was talking with a guy at my work today, and he was joking about the Jaguars because he took back in Week 1. I forgot the Colts lost to the Jaguars opening day, and he's like, "Yeah, my first time doing a survivor pool, and I took the Colts to win, and that didn't end up too well." So the Jags, like last week was their first game where they weren't really competitive. So maybe against the Bears, the Bears do some weird stuff sometimes. And then yeah, I like your point there with the Colts potentially. Essentially, the Green Bay would have to win next week against the Titans. I don't know if the Colts are going to be resting their players, so that might be interesting. But we'll see what the Jaguars can do. Hey, no problem. Thank you for your time and thanks for hanging out. I appreciate everybody in the chat room tonight. Kashif, what's going on? How you feel about Ridley versus the Chiefs defense and DK versus the Rams in PPR? I might need to bench one of them. Whew, that's going to be tough. Ridley was a monster yesterday, just an absolute monster. And Tampa Bay's defense has been kind of weaker of late towards the secondary. And then with the Chiefs have one of the better defenses that limit PPR points to the wide receiver. So let's just pull up the stats here and we'll see. Because I'm also in the position where I have DK Metcalf. I'm not really in a position to bench him, but I'm nervous. And then you see here the Chiefs, number 2 against the wide receivers, 30.2 points per game for fantasy PPR. They've allowed 13 touchdowns, under 1,900 yards here. So if we click into this, I'm just curious to see each week, these have been the best receivers going up against the Chiefs here. So Sanders, 11.6, Mac Hollins, 11.6. You do see a good run here, though, of 4 weeks where the number 1 receiver didn't have a problem. So 20.4, 20 for Evans, 20.8 for Nelson Aguilar, and then Curtis Samuel goes off for 26.8. So just looking at this, the number 1 receivers technically do have pretty good days against the Chiefs. They were probably a little bit more stingier up top here, but Will Fuller, Keenan Allen, even Henry Ruggs, Stephon Diggs. I would definitely put Calvin Ridley in this. Will Fuller, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans. He's an elite wide receiver 1. I'm feeling more comfortable with Calvin Ridley, I think, right now. In a game against the Chiefs, I mean, they're going to have to put up points. Whereas this game with DK Metcalf and the Rams, man, I don't want to tell you to bench DK Metcalf, but if it's for Calvin Ridley, I suppose we can do it. But then you see here, we just look at the Chiefs, number 2. The Rams are the best team against the wide receivers here. So that makes me a little scary here. They've only allowed 7 touchdowns to the receivers all year. Back in what week was this when they played each other? Back in week 10, DK Metcalf, only 2 for 28, 4 targets here. The Seahawks were able to win, or the Rams were able to win 23-16. So this was not a great game for the Seattle Seahawks. Their offense looks kind of fishy right now. So I think just based on what I've said so far, and then if you look down here, this is what the number 1 receivers against the Rams have looked like so far. It looks like Debo had a good game. It's the only game over 20. Hopkins got his. Godwin, Lockett, Robinson. You're not really seeing like big physical receivers. These guys are all kind of finesse players, Lockett, Godwin, Samuel, even Hopkins. So that kind of goes against, I think, DK Metcalf a little bit. So I'm going to say Calvin Ridley here. Thank you for the question. And of course, yeah, good luck to you in Septimus this week. We'll probably help you out throughout the week. How did the NFC East turn from a horrible division? Right? Like just looking at it, it's like that one. It's like that one little video of the lady thinking like, maybe like it actually looks like a solid group of teams here. And I don't believe anyone's been eliminated in the East yet. Even Philadelphia is sitting down here. What would they need to do? They would need Washington to lose the rest of their games. So if Washington loses the next 2 weeks, Philadelphia wins the next 2 weeks, that could work. I do think the Cowboys-Eagles game this week, I mean, that's probably going to eliminate some team here. So technically, all the dogs in the fight still have a chance. And I don't know. I think my money's on Washington though, just because they get Carolina and the Eagles. Like they're in control here of their destiny. They just have to basically win one of these games. Interesting. Ron Rivera against his former team. That's probably a little extra fuel for the Washington football team as well. But all of a sudden, not a horrible division. Not that terrible. And then next year too, when Saquon Barkley, Dak Prescott, a full year Jalen Hurts, we'll see what Washington can do. This division next year might be pretty dang fun to watch. What's going on, Aiden? Thanks for hanging out. We got bounced in 2 to 7 leagues. The rest oh man, that's a bummer, man. That's a bummer. Yes, this was who I was thinking about. We were talking about the Jets earlier, and I knew someone was a Jags fan, and it's Aiden here. So I guess that's probably the most important W of all. A fantasy championship is nice, but Trevor Lawrence might be a gift that keeps on giving here. So I just can't believe, even when the Jets went up like 20 to nothing or whatever, you're just thinking like they're coming back. There's enough time, but they found a way to mess it up here. So just super bizarre here. We'll see what happens in the NFL draft. But a lot of fun things going on in the NFL right now. I'm trying to think. Let's just take a peek at the week 16 schedule. As far as like a YouTube schedule this week, I'm not sure what I'm doing because of the Christmas week. Probably not going to do anything on. We'll put out shows. We'll figure it out as we go here. But a lot of fun weekend matchups here. We got a Friday Christmas Day game, 3:30 p.m. Central Time, Vikings Saints. Saturday, 3 games all day long, football all day long, guys. Tampa Bay at Detroit, the Niners at the Cardinals, the Dolphins at the Raiders. This isn't going to be the best day to watch football, but this, Arizona, Kyler Murray, Hopkins could be fun. People are going to need Tom Brady and probably some of the receivers. And then this Miami Las Vegas game is going to be kind of a wild card game. So pretty fun schedule here going into the Christmas championship weekend here. I think the order for basketball draft is out. I'll take a peek at it in a second here. I might just use my phone real quick. Stephen P, thanks for hanging out, man. Let's help you out here. So we need a receiver and a flex. So he's got Brandon Ayuk, Corey Davis, Brandon Cooks, Chase Claypool, DJ Moore, Jonathan Taylor, Kenyon Drake. Could try for Pollard or Bell on waiver this week. Is for the championship. I normally would just flex Taylor, but it's Pitt. Okay, so yeah, I totally get the hesitation with Jonathan Taylor. We need a receiver here. So as far as receivers, Brandon Ayuk is definitely a guy that's going to be tough to bench. Let me just take a look and see. I'm curious if Ayuk has a game against. Let's just see if Brandon Ayuk has played the Arizona Cardinals yet this year. Just see what he did against them. So he must have been out for one of those games. So he hasn't played the Arizona Cardinals yet this year. But at the moment, you see all these targets here. I can't actually zoom into it a little bit. But 13 targets last week, 9 for 73 in the touchdown. The week before, 16 targets, 9 targets, 14, 11. I think I'm going to probably fall into this target train. We do like Corey Davis. We like Claypool. We'll watch tonight. If Claypool blows up tonight, maybe we'll think about him. But for me, as far as the one receiver, it's going to be between Ayuk, DJ Moore, and Corey Davis. I'm probably just going to roll with Ayuk because he's just been kind of locked and steady there at the receiver position for them. And they don't really need they do not really need it doesn't really matter if it's Mullins or Beathard. I think they don't really need anybody else to throw the ball to, so it's all Ayuk there. And then Taylor, Kenyon Drake got hurt. We'll have to watch his reports. And then with Pollard or Bell, I'm assuming Ezekiel Elliott comes back for the Eagle game. So it's probably going to be Le'Veon Bell being the guy that you're going to want to start there. But if you had to flex 2 guys, if you needed one receiver and a flex, I'm probably choosing 2 receivers in this situation. So we're going to say Ayuk. And then I think Corey Davis is fun, but the Packers are kind of pesky on defense right now. So I'm probably going to say DJ Moore. But the 3 I'm thinking between Ayuk, Davis, and DJ Moore, I think that's going to be the group that I like there the most. And yeah, I thought Kittle might be back, but because they pretty much eliminated themselves from the playoffs yesterday, there's probably a chance where they just don't risk it. So we'll see about that, and then we'll kind of watch there. But Ayuk, DJ Moore, and Corey Davis. If you want to do any of those 2, I wouldn't knock any of those 2 down there. Yeah. Pretty crazy. Yeah, the Christmas Day NBA slate's going to be pretty fun, and they got that going at all times there. As a Packer fan, I'll probably watch the Vikings Saints game pretty closely, and then just kind of follow some basketball on the side. But yeah, Christmas Day is fun. There's going to be a lot of things going on. I got the first pick. Are you kidding me? I got the first pick. Oh my god! I was just going to actually pull that up here and see what I can look at. But we're doing a fantasy basketball league tonight. I'll do a live stream for the draft. But dang, first pick? Are you kidding me? I'm trying to open that up. Turner's got the fourth, not a bad spot to be. The fifth. Okay. The ESPN project's so messed up on basketball. The projections are pretty crazy. I have custom scoring settings that I've just been playing with the last few years. ESPN just kind of updated their standard settings too. They're not the greatest. But I have something kind of dialed in that makes sense to us. So we'll go with some custom settings there. What's up, Bills Mafia? Great game, Josh Allen on Sunday or Saturday. That was fun to watch. Helped me get to a fantasy championship. But we got Christian McCaffrey, Antonio Gibson, Julio on my bench. Any of them worth playing when they come back? Yeah, man. I mean, if you get CMC back, he's in your lineup for sure. There's a question if the Panthers, man, what do they have to play for besides pride at the moment? A win against the Washington football team would only hurt their draft capital there. And then with Gibson, the other side of that coin, because Washington's probably trending towards a playoff team, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets maybe one more week of rest. So, and then Julio Jones too is like at the moment too. The Falcons are all they're not interested in the playoffs, but they do have a lot of fight. So with Julio against the Chiefs, that's a tougher matchup. I'd probably say if McCaffrey plays, you're getting McCaffrey in no matter what. And then with Julio, it really depends on who your options are. I think it sounded like Julio was really close to playing in this one. So if you wanted to get Julio in there, I think I'd be okay with it. They're not going to risk him if he's playing. He's healthy. So I'm going to rank them McCaffrey, Julio, and Gibson. And if McCaffrey's in, man, I think you got to do it. Especially week 16, he's too good to potentially haunt our dreams on our bench there. So I'm just kind of checking out the draft order real quick here. Dang, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, going on about 38 minutes here. If you guys have any more questions, keep firing them up. RJ Barrett's. RJ Barrett's going to be a pretty good player this year, expected to grow quite a bit. I kind of did go through all of the notes I think that I had. Michael Gallup, again, we touched on his hit pointer. If you guys have injury questions, I think tomorrow night's show is going to be much more waiver wire oriented. This is all kind of just reports and stuff from yesterday. So there's really not too – Monday's a really slow news day. I think Tuesday is going to be the day where we get more stuff. If you guys are interested in any opportunity reports in terms of snap counts, this one was really interesting. The Cardinals, Kenyon Drake actually came into this one healthy, and then he gets hurt. So Chase Edmonds, who came in unhealthy, and then kind of came in and just took over the field there. So 11 for 47, 3 catches, 19 yards, and the touchdown. Kenyon Drake was a disappointment. And then Bills Mafia is saying, why is Robbie Anderson so bad now? I don't know I think it might have just been the tough matchup for Green Bay. With Green Bay, Kevin King, Jair Alexander, kind of good physical corners. For some reason, DJ Moore also went over 100 yards against the Packers last year. So when I was ranking these guys, I was actually a little bit more optimistic about DJ Moore. But I don't know. Green Bay's defense kind of does well against Robbie Anderson type mold receivers. So maybe this is just a blip in the radar against Washington. That's a tough matchup. We'll see what happens there. But for the most part, yeah, very disappointing day from Robbie Anderson and Teddy Bridgewater with that stupid fumble at the goal line. But they gave Green Bay a run. The Panthers are a tough out. So even though it's Washington this week, I would expect the Panthers to play quite well there. And no love for the RJ Barrett. I like Barrett for fantasy, like not a true game changer, I think. But for fantasy, he can be pretty productive as like your worst player in your team. Anthony Davis or Karl Anthony Towns. I typically draft for players I like better than other players, even if it's like a close, like we're splitting hairs here. These guys, both probably top 5 players. I like to root for Karl Anthony Towns. I think he's a fun player, really underrated shooter there too. So I probably like Karl Anthony Towns a little bit there. Aiden likes AD. Splitting hairs. AD is a fantastic player. But for me, I'm not a big Laker guy, so I go with the small town Anthony Towns. Yeah. If anyone dropped David Montgomery, that's bad process. You don't cut a guy who basically, ever since Tariq Cohen got hurt like week 2 or something, like Montgomery's been dominating. He's been dominating the snap share here. He's getting, upwards of 85 to 90+% of the snap share. So it's not hard to see this coming, especially as the weather gets colder. They're going to continue to run the ball. And the big thing with Chicago's running game is it's not just Montgomery, but it's their offensive line that's gotten a lot better. And then the fact that they're using tight ends Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham more, like Cole Kmet's a better blocking tight end. And you see yesterday, 100% of the snaps. So I think Cole Kmet is a really sneaky guy there that's helping David Montgomery in the running game as well as the offensive line. So Chicago Bears, all of a sudden, man, everyone thought that there was going to be some firing going on a couple weeks ago, but they're right there at the edge of the playoffs. So we risked it and started Jalen Hurts. I'm Matt Ryan. Was this a super flex league there for you, Cinema? Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I kind of backed into Jalen Hurts. I stupidly benched Justin Herbert, but my quarterback options were Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and then Taysom Hill at the time. So I was going to go with Taysom Hill, but luckily I backed out of that. So yes, I'll definitely take Michael Kidd, Gilchrist #1. I'm crazy idea, but I might take Giannis Antetokounmpo. That might be a little off the wall there, but I'm probably gonna go with Giannis. I live in Milwaukee, so how do I not take Giannis there? One of the more fun players to root for, I think, with his story. But just kind of perusing through some of the opportunity snap. If you guys have any specific teams you guys want me to pull up, I am open to hanging out for the full hour here. We have another 18 minutes. Andrew Bauer in the chat room says, "Let's go, Ebron." Andrew's going to be for Turner, and I don't know if anyone else is in there, but Andrew's going to be in the draft for the basketball draft tonight. He's also needs 5.3 Eric Ebron points in PPR to face me in the championship next week. So we'll see if he can get it. Good luck, Andrew. I hope you can get it, and I'll see you over Christmas, man. I'm going to punch you in the face next week. Chicago Bears. But yeah, if you guys have any teams in specific that you guys want me to take a look at, we can pull that up. I did kind of want to point out some of the Brown stuff because their offense has been hot. Dante DiVincenzo. Dante's fun. He's definitely one of those guys you can have towards the end of the bench that could be a pretty nice pick. And Dante, before COVID crashed the entire league, back in that one day in March, Dante was actually playing some really good football. And then I think the pause. And then the Bucks just couldn't get their mojo back in the bubble. So the bubble really affected their momentum, I think, more than other teams. But yeah, Dante DiVincenzo, really fun third-year player that should be thrust into more opportunity this year. But looking at the Cleveland Browns real quick, I just kind of wanted to point some things out. So Kareem Hunt, pretty disappointing day yesterday. Only 21 snaps, 33%. That's kind of down. Whereas, I mean, when Nick Chubb first returned, it was still Kareem Hunt, but apparently this has gone full-blown Nick Chubb. Like when the Giants can't score more than 6 points, then they're going to run the ball. It's going to be all Nick Chubb all the time. 15 for 15, a touchdown, even a couple catches here for Nick Chubb. So that's really, really awesome. But Kareem Hunt, the Browns are going to be going up against the Jets. You got to think these two guys are both going to get theirs. A little bit nervous playing the wide receivers here. If you're playing one receiver, it's going to be Landry. He paced the team in targets. So next week against the Jets, it's going to be pretty fun. I think you're going to want to start your Browns. And then they really use the tight ends well a lot. They run, with Kevin Stefanski there in Cleveland, they run a lot of 2 tight end sets. It's kind of a mess for fantasy, but it's nice to see Hooper with 5 for 41 and a touchdown. I'll probably put Hooper on the waiver wire list there. But if you guys got any specific teams you guys want me to pull up, we can kind of quick look at them. And Tyler Huntley didn't look too bad. He actually, he held his own. He didn't one of my favorite ways of watching a rookie quarterback is that first drive or two is, do they look overwhelmed? He seemed fine. I mean, there's no pressure, being up 40-14. But he looked like he could hang. So kind of a fun. He was their 4th quarterback on the practice squad pretty much all year, and then because RG3 and Trace McSorley got hurt, you see the 4th string quarterback Tyler Huntley get some snaps there. I'll pull that up real quick. So for the Baltimore Ravens, we can look at the Ravens real quick. But again, yeah, Tyler Huntley, 2 for 4, and 4 carries, 18 yards. But J.K. Dobbins, guys, I don't want to get any more questions. Do I start J.K. Dobbins? He is a must start. Again, dominated the touches, 14 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Also 1 catch for 17 yards. And he's hovering, right around 50% of the snaps. They're going to play the Giants this week. Again, this is going to be a really nice spot for your Ravens. Gus Edwards, if you started Edwards, he didn't come through with a touchdown, but you can't really be mad, especially if it's a standard or a PPR or whatever. The fact that he accumulates 78 total yards and gets 2 catches, that's a decent floor game and a high yardage game for Gus Edwards. So kind of interesting there. Yeah, it's the Ravens. Yeah, they have a type there, and they know that anything happens to Lamar, they're going to plug in the same style of offense. So I think that's a really smart way of crafting their backup quarterbacks to essentially anything happens to Lamar. There's no philosophy change. Maybe it's a little bit more inexperienced at QB, but the Ravens have a pretty good formula there for who their backup quarterbacks are. So just looking at the Ravens here, they're going to be playing the Giants next weekend. So we're going to be all in on the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, probably top 5 quarterback option. J.K. Dobbins, fringe quarterback 1. Gus Edwards, if you need help at the running back 2, Gus Edwards could be used as a low-end play, especially if Mark Ingram, with the healthy scratch of Mark Ingram. Maybe, I don't know what that's about. Like, he only got 1 snap the week before here, so we'll watch for him. But J.K. Dobbins, you love what you're getting there. Marquise Brown, the last month of football, he's been turning it on. 6 for 98 here. It's a nice high volume day. He didn't get a touchdown for the first time in like 3 weeks. But if you started Marquise Brown, I think you probably left a happy customer in week 15 there. So you see him kind of turning in the corner here with the targets, especially 8, 8, 6, and 7. That's some really good consistency here. Still hasn't broke 100 yards since back in week 1. But you like what the offense is doing for Baltimore. A lot of good stuff here. And then we've hit on Mark Andrews. If there's any Mark Andrews or questions, I'm going to say Mark Andrews for the most part here. So Baltimore Ravens are going to help us win fantasy championships here. I kind of want to just kind of keep rolling on down here. Kind of talked about the Bears. I think as far as the Bears going up against Jacksonville, Montgomery is going to be your guy for sure there. And then, yeah, Fez Bryant. Fez Bryant gets the touchdown. That's kind of fun there. We're not going to trust Dez for fantasy here. Maybe he has a good game against the Jaguars, but the Ravens, I pretty much talked about who I like there. And then I'm kind of just moving it down the list here with the Dallas Cowboys playing Philadelphia next week. And Michael Gallup has that hip injury. Not sure if he's going to play, but if Gallup is out, CeeDee Lamb's going to be a guy that intrigues me. CeeDee Lamb was the best receiver for them yesterday. Cooper and Gallup both kind of struggled. But for sure, CeeDee Lamb had a career-long catch, 45 yards, 5 for 85. He also ran an onside kickback for a touchdown here. So if Michael Gallup's out, that's going to make you interested in Cooper, CeeDee Lamb going up against Philadelphia. That's a game. That's an elimination game for the NFC East. So hopefully, it'd be nice if you have Pollard. Of course, you're wanting Zeke to sit here, but I'm assuming they're going to try to get him back. So interesting day for the Dallas Cowboys. Is Akers still good? So he did. That whole team was. I don't know what it was. I haven't rewatched the game on the condensed version yet, but they were just in a funk yesterday. But you still like the fact that Akers comes out and gets the majority of the snaps and the touches here. And I mean, the other guys, Malcolm Brown, 1 carry, Darrell Henderson, 1 carry, and then just 1 target each. So I still feel pretty safe about him being the bell cow back. And the Rams going up against the Seahawks. We just saw J.D. McKissick have a really wild day on the ground. Peyton Barber also ran for a touchdown there too. So there will be some pretty good opportunity. There will be some opportunity for Cam Akers against the Seahawks. So Cam Akers is still good. He did leave that game for a little bit with an ankle injury, so that might have been bothering him. But we're going to watch his reports. I think Cam Akers is going to be fine. Going up against Seattle, he's still going to be a fringe running back 1. And I'm probably going to be recommending him because even though he left for like a series with the ankle injury, and the guy still ends up with the majority of snaps, the touches, and then more targets than the other backs here. So Cam Akers is still good. The Rams were just garbage yesterday. There's really no words for it. Cooper Kupp didn't do anything, no targets. Bob Woods, though, had himself a day with that 40-yard carry and the touchdown there. Andrew, I get the first pick. Me too tonight. Andrew's number 2 tonight. Interesting. Interesting. So we do see a couple other things here on the Rams list. If you guys need tight end, Tyler Higbee's probably going to be intriguing me. He's going to probably be the lone tight end next week. Gerald Everett left with a concussion. We'll have to watch his reports all week here, but I'm not assuming Everett's going to go. Tyler Higbee's probably going to be the guy for us. Looks like Josh Gordon activated to play. That's something we're not going to probably use him for fantasy at all, but it's definitely something that's going to be good for Seattle going into the playoffs. They also had Rashad Penny back yesterday too. So the Seahawks adding a really explosive running back in Rashad Penny, and now also adding Josh Gordon here. That's kind of fun. Penny only played 6 snaps, but typically in a first game back from a major injury like that, you're going to see a small snap count here. But it's good to see him come into the game and leave the game, without any setbacks here. So the Seahawks have been doing a pretty heavy rotation of Lockett, Metcalf, and Moore, and then they like Freddie Swain. Freddie Swain actually had a touchdown called back. So we'll see if Josh Gordon can kind of get a few snaps in and start to work his way. They're also getting Greg Olsen back. So Seattle getting healthier at the right time. Typically in the past, it's been kind of the opposite way here. So this offense, it's sleeping right now, but it could kind of waken up by the playoffs here. So something to keep an eye on for sure. Tampa Bay was interesting. Tom Brady was giving me a panic attack in the first half yesterday. 0 points for the Bucs in the first half against the Falcons. He only had like 60 yards or something at the first half, so it was a sweated out kind of second half there. But he comes through, 390 yards, 2 touchdowns. Evans, Godwin, those guys belong in your lineups for sure. Even though Godwin had a kind of a low target, low reception, low yards day, he still gets a touchdown to fall through for us. And Mike Evans, man, he probably should have had 2 touchdowns yesterday the way he was playing. I think he got tackled inside the 5 2 times. Antonio Brown coming out of nowhere for that long bomb touchdown, 5 for 93 and a touchdown. Don't know if we're going to trust him, but it's a good matchup against Detroit. He's not going to be on the field a lot, under 50%, so it's kind of a risky play, but it is Detroit, so we'll see. Rob Gronkowski's still kind of inefficient with his targets, so that's kind of it'll be a little bit struggling. But yeah, man, we'll see you in a half an hour or so. Thanks for hanging out for the football show. We'll see you later, Turner. And then the Titans. What do we do with the Titans, guys? If you had Derrick Henry, that he could have had probably a 40 burger in this one. Only 43 snaps, 63% of the snap share. They used Evans and McNichols towards the back end of the game. They even got Darrington Evans the touchdown at the end there. So this could have been a much bigger day for Derrick Henry for sure. But Tannehill just gobbled up the goal line touchdowns there. That was kind of frustrating. McKissick available. Should I drop Akers for him? Is this PPR there, Bills Mafia? I would have a tough time dropping Cam Akers. Is there another player that you could potentially cut? But you're trying to start somebody this week, right? Like you're trying to start McKissick. So the problem with McKissick in this game's an outlier here. Washington typically doesn't run 70 snaps per game. Dwayne Haskins and the Washington football team, they don't typically throw 55 times a game. So this is kind of an outlier game. And it turned out really good for J.D. McKissick. Let me just kind of pull up what McKissick's been up to the last few games here. But he's wildly unpredictable. Especially if this is PPR. Sure, he's hit double digits the last couple games here, so he's got a safe floor. But these targets, sandwiched of 9, 2, and 10, could be anything here. But I did like that he's getting the carries here. So you like that over Peyton Barber. So you have Julio, CMC, and Gibson. And yes, PPR. Interesting. So I think here's what we're gonna do, Bill. Tomorrow, because I'm assuming your waiver claims go in tomorrow night. You wake up on Wednesday and then you get your new guys here. So I'm thinking tomorrow we're gonna wait and see what the reports are. I'm assuming no Antonio Gibson. So I think because you're swapping out McKissick for Gibson, I think that's what I would lean towards doing. I don't think Gibson's going to play. So if we get any news updates tomorrow, I do think Julio has a good chance of playing. I could see CMC wanting to play as well. But Gibson being a rookie running back off a pretty serious toe injury, I think Gibson's the one guy I think I would be willing to let go. Because even if Gibson plays, you're not going to want if he plays, you're probably not going to be too excited about it in his first game back from a toe injury with McKissick and Barber playing well. So I do think I think potentially I'm leaning Gibson, and this one would be the guy to chop. And then let me just see here. My only receivers are Corey Davis and Anderson. Whew, and Julio. So yeah, Julio would be nice, but for the moment, Corey Davis is kind of locked in to a really good situation in a game against Green Bay where there's going to need to be points scored. And then Robbie Anderson, we'll see what he can do against Washington, but I think for the most part, Robbie Anderson, I'd be shocked if he has 2 duds in a row. But maybe so tomorrow night. I don't know what you're doing tomorrow night, Bill, but we can look at some waiver wire names tomorrow night. But Robbie Anderson, he's a wide receiver 17 in PPR, so he's had a couple bummer games here, but for the most part, we should expect double digits here, even though it's a tough matchup. So Sport Dog, I couldn't believe the poor performance of Hawkinson and Cooks. I don't know if I should try for Higbee or ride out the storm. 18 PPR. I'm definitely going to be interested in Higbee. If Gerald Everett's not playing, I'm going to be pumping up Higbee all week. And Hawkinson against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like we don't know if Stafford's playing. It kind of feels like a roll of the dice situation. Tampa Bay against the tight end real quick, and that's what sucks. Like when a guy underperforms that much, it kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth here. So Tampa Bay against the tight end. Tampa Bay is not great. They've allowed 8 touchdowns, 768 yards, about 14.5 points per game. So on paper, it's a good matchup. And then I'm assuming is that Jared Cook or Brandon Cooks? The S is making me think Jared Cooks, Jared Cook or Brandon Cooks. But we do see here Tampa Bay against the tight ends. They've allowed 3 straight touchdowns against the tight ends here, so this might be something to fall into. I think I would. I think I'm going to hold on to Hawkinson. I wouldn't mind adding Higbee for Jared Cook because Cook's just inefficient. He's just very inefficient. The Saints against the Vikings, we'll see. But I think Higbee's going to definitely interest me for sure this week. Rams D or Texans next week versus Bengals. Probably got to go Texans. I think the Texans actually played quite well yesterday against the Colts. And the Bengals, man, I kind of want to target the Bengals. So if those are my 2 choices, Mr. Sexy Surfer 69, or if this, I don't know if that's a lady, but we're going to go, I think I'm going to say the Texans right now. Rams D, doesn't feel, I don't really like playing against the Seattle Seahawks, whereas I'm pretty sure the Texans are going to destroy the Cincinnati Bengals there. And yeah, we touched on those. So we're going on about 58 minutes here. I got another minute or 2 for you guys if you guys have any more final questions. But again, tomorrow night I'll be going live, same time as normal, 6 o'clock. We'll strictly go over the waiver wire report. I did have the list of injuries here that I'm watching for tomorrow, and then I'm going to fill out the rest of my start or my waiver wire column. So strictly waiver wire stuff tomorrow. Come with your questions, whatever else you guys need. Otherwise, I got a fantasy basketball mock real draft. We're doing a real league draft tonight. I got to get ready for that. That starts in a half an hour. So if you want to hang out and in mock draft, or I keep saying mock draft, if you want to do follow along with the real draft, come hang out with us in a half an hour. Looks like we got all the questions answered in there today. So thank you guys for hanging out in the chat room. We'll see you guys in another video.